Twitch is born out of Justin TV. Justin TV was a very popular, very infamous live streaming service that was launched about 6 years ago by a bunch of Yale grads. And they basically created a technology platform that would allow them to move a great deal of video around very efficiently, very, very quickly. And their original plan was that people would live stream. And of course, what happened was instead of people live streaming, people started actually streaming Formula One, Premier League soccer, and the NFL and so on. And Justin TV went through a sort of a fairly long period of negotiating with broadcast companies and so on and so on. And eventually a détente was arrived at. And Justin TV existed as a business which had a lot of this sort of the dark sports being broadcast on there, that kind of thing. And these guys, the founders, realized that that this was an interesting business, but it wasn't a really exciting business. They looked at the ecosystem of what people were broadcasting live, and they realized that where the real heat was games. And so pretty much exactly 2 years ago, they sort of did a classic pivot in a sense, in that they actually moved the bulk of the business to Twitch. They renamed it Twitch, and it's all about the live broadcasting of games. So the business is just about 2 years old. We currently have, in June, we had about 40 million uniques visit us and watch about 1.5 billion minutes of live video. The average user spends about 90 minutes a day on Twitch right now. And the research actually very interestingly suggests that where they're finding that time, that 90 minutes, it's coming directly from TV. Essentially, they're watching less TV. They're actually watching people play games, and that's sort of the critical thing about Twitch, is it's people watching other people play games. We have about 600,000 people a month who broadcast currently, and that number has tripled since the end of last year. In order to broadcast right now, it's actually a little bit of a home IT project. Internally we refer to it as a 3-beer project, because that's roughly what it'll take you. You'll need to drink about 3 beers to get the job done. But you can essentially set up your PC. We give you the instructions to essentially set up your PC, and what you're able to do is, as you're playing a game, that game, through a little piece of technology that we've got, that game is able to basically be broadcast on Twitch. And you also have a choice, which is you can do, you can actually put you can use your webcam to basically put yourself in picture as well. So you end up with what you're broadcasting is both your gameplay and also your reactions, and you can speak over the gameplay as well. That then arrives on our platform, where essentially it arrives on our platform with sort of tens of thousands of other people doing the same thing, and through a fairly sort of merit-based system, stuff rises to the top and becomes ever more popular. Up until now, to broadcast from a console has been quite difficult. You've essentially had to plug in a video capture card and then plug the capture card into a PC, and that's meant that the vast bulk of broadcasting has been done from PCs, and it's been PC games that have been broadcast. At E3 in LA last month, Microsoft announced that the Twitch technology is basically going to be built into the new Xbox One console, meaning that essentially from within any time that you're within the Xbox One environment or the Xbox Live environment, you will basically be able to say Xbox broadcast, and when it broadcasts, it will broadcast your gameplay. When it broadcasts that gameplay, it will essentially broadcast it onto Twitch. We realized very early on that the way to grow the network was to attract the really, really good and popular broadcasters and players. And we sort of look at broadcasters and players differently. Some broadcasters are extremely good gamers, and people watch them because they want to learn how to play games better. Some broadcasters are actually not great gamers, but they're very funny broadcasters, and they attract a sort of cult of personality around them. Some of them even for the fact that they're terrible gamers. But essentially what we did was we figured out that we had to attract these people to our platform. So we devised a business model which is essentially a revenue sharing model. And so if you reach a certain number, a certain critical mass in terms of popularity on Twitch as a broadcaster, we reach out to you, we invite you into our partners program, and at that point you start sharing revenue. And the revenue share is roughly 50-50. It's done on a CPM basis, so saying it's absolutely 50-50 is probably not 100% true. But there are a lot of people who make good money, and there are probably around, I would say there's probably close to a dozen people last year made in over $100,000 from their broadcasting on Twitch and sharing in the ad revenue. One of the really cool things that we did at Twitch, I think, was that realizing that we couldn't have interruptive ads, that we couldn't have the sort of content flow that works on TV because of the nature of games. We essentially give broadcasters the ability to run ads whenever they want to run ads. So the whole sort of figuring out how much content they can serve and then how many ads they can show without alienating their audience, we put that onto the broadcasters. We set no rules about that. So what happens is somebody's broadcasting their game and we flight ads in, and they can see the ads that are queuing up, and they essentially can play a level of a game which could be 10 minutes, could be 20 minutes, could be 40 minutes. And at the end of that level, they can essentially say to their audience, okay, well, I'm going off, make a cup of tea and have a smoke or something, whatever it is, and I'm going to run ads now. And because Twitch is so community focused, and because people are so appreciative of these broadcasters, the audience is so appreciative, we get very, very little drop off when those ads are run. The audience has a real sort of understanding that those ads are a necessary evil, which is basically making the broadcasts possible. Until very recently, CBS Interactive sold our ads. We had a really great partnership with GameSpot and with the CBS teams in San Francisco and New York. Just recently, we actually have begun the process of unwinding that relationship, and we're in the throes now of recruiting our own national sales team, which will be based in San Francisco, LA, New York, Chicago, and so on. The type of ads we sell are, obviously we sell a lot of ads to games companies, and then we do quite a bit of business with non-endemic brands as well, with youth brands, people like Speedstick and obviously entertainment brands, that kind of thing. Axe is another person that we do business with. But a lot of what we do is we do classic sort of pre-roll, mid-roll, and homepage takeovers, that kind of thing. But what we also do is we try really hard to harness the community. So somebody can come to us with a game and say, this game is misunderstood. This is a game you've got to get to know in order to want to buy it. So what we can do is we can essentially connect those people with, let's say, half a dozen really influential broadcasters who've got really big followings, and those broadcasters will play that game live. They will take that game before it comes out and they will start broadcasting and playing that game and talking about it. And as long as we choose the right broadcasters, as long as there's sort of a meeting of minds between the game developers and publishers and the broadcasters, there can be a really great experience where a game that's very hard to sort of describe in a 90-second trailer or very hard to describe in sort of a press release can be brought to life by players for other players. And that's actually a very persuasive, very compelling tool for game companies. The way that the company's set up at the moment, we're well funded. We actually have only done, in the 7 years that Justin TV has existed, we've actually only done 2 rounds of funding, and we're actually about to close a third. And I think that the partnerships with the console manufacturers, with those platforms, I think they are potentially game changers for us. If we've reached 40 million people with essentially PC games, then we think that there's huge potential there once we're on the consoles. The day that Sony and Microsoft announced their new consoles at E3, we broadcast their press conferences. That was the biggest day in our history in terms of viewership. We had more concurrence that day. About 25% of the month's traffic actually happened in that day. And that sort of suggests to us that there's huge hunger in this market for streaming from consoles. We're shortly releasing an SDK which will allow people to stream directly from iOS devices. We already have viewing apps on iOS and Android. And so our mission is really, what we would love to do is we want to make it possible that people can basically watch gameplay wherever they are. If you're sat in the airport, you can watch it on your phone. If you're at home, you can watch it on your big screen TV. We want to make it really, we would love to see it just be sort of a standard part of the if you like, the sort of the entertainment landscape. And we think there's a really good chance that will happen. And if gaming becomes that, then we want to be ESPN in that environment. We want to be the ESPN of that.